Good morning.
Good morning.
What's your name?
My name's Laurel Stroud. It's Laurel Stroud.
Hi, Laurel Stroud. I'm going to ask you a few questions about the event of 9/11.
Okay.
First question, what is the first thing you think about when I say 9/11?
I think about how the people I was living in New York, and I think about how everything kind of stood still for a day. It's usually a very busy place, and everybody stopped. And that was very unusual. That's what I think about.
What was your profession while you were during your 9/11?
I was a video producer. I produced video news releases for different clients, and you can think about that as kind of a press release for television. So clients would hire my company to interview experts or anyone who wanted to talk about their product, and then we packaged it, we edited the video in a way so that news stations would air it on their TV show.
Cool, very cool. Where and what were you doing when the 9/11 events happened?
I was living in Queens, New York, and that day I was supposed to go to Boston to meet a client. So I drove myself to LaGuardia Airport. Thankfully, my plane never left the ground, so I stayed in Queens all day.
When did you realize what had happened?
Wasn't until, so when the event happened, they closed down airports. And so I was at the airport, but I didn't have any information about why the airport was closed. I was concentrating on trying to communicate with my work and my client, and my cell phone didn't work because the cell phone tower was on the tower. So I drove home so I could call my boss, and my boss told me what was going on, and he told me to turn the TV on.
How did you respond to what happened?
I was in disbelief, and then I wasn't really afraid for my personal life, like I was going to be personally hurt, but it was a numbing kind of dread, kind of
like
fear.
How did that happen?
Right. And I lived alone at the time, and I wasn't with my coworkers, so I kind of felt kind of isolated too. Like, what do I do? And I didn't know who to ask, and nobody knew, right? Who knows what's going to happen? So even if you ask somebody, what do we do now? No one had the answer to that at that time. So it was kind of an uneasiness, anxiety. Yeah.
Could you see any part of the towers from where you were?
That is very interesting. Yes, on my drive to the airport, I lived in Queens, not very far from the airport. So I drove myself to the airport to catch my flight, and on the way to the airport, I could see the Twin Towers, and I remember thinking that morning, wow, those buildings are really tall if I can see them from here. And then on the way home, I wasn't thinking about them at all. I was just trying to get home. So I didn't see the smoke except for television. So no, I didn't even look that direction on the way home. But on the way to the airport, I remember seeing them. It was a beautiful day, bright blue sky, and they stood out. And I remember thinking, wow, they're really tall.
How did you feel in the days after the attacks?
Again, I was anxious for a bunch of reasons. At first, the subways and the buses weren't running, so we all had to stay at home. The city, the mayor and his offices were just saying, everybody stay home. So your routine was out of place, and there wasn't a lot to do. So you're just watching TV, and it was all bad. I mean, there was no other TV to watch. It wasn't like you could switch to another channel and see something else. That was the only thing going on. And you couldn't do anything about the situation, and you couldn't go to work, and nothing else was running. You couldn't go to like a museum or anything that you would do like on a normal day off. So that's the only thing happening, only thing in your mind. And so that was anxious. And then when work first started again, there were all kinds of copycat things and bomb threats and everything in Manhattan. And so they kept, the buildings kept being evacuated. I lived very near Grand Central Station, or I worked. I didn't live there. I worked very near Grand Central Station, and that had a bunch of bomb threats the next week. So there was always, and so it was just a high level of tension and anxiety everywhere.
2 more questions. How do you think the country responded? Did it respond well? Was it weird?
I think at first they did respond as well as they could. They didn't know what it was. It was a brand new thing. So let me start over. They shut down all the airports for a long time. And I think that interrupted business. It certainly interrupted my business. My personal company lost almost all their business because our clients paid for videos to be put on TV and nothing was running on TV. So they're like, okay, all that. So things like that, right? But then I think the country, after a couple of weeks of shock, made an effort to go back to normal or try to go back to normal. And sometimes they did it well and sometimes they didn't. Some things worked. They got back and running and some things just went away. But I think overall, people wanted it to be normal again. And it was never going to be exactly the same again. But I think people said, okay, we're going to take our lives back.
About how long were airports shut down in the area?
At least a month. It was the whole country. So I knew people who they were on trips already. They couldn't get back home. They had to take a train or rent a car, and it completely jumbled a lot of people's schedules. I was very blessed that my plane never left the ground.
And then, how did it feel to live in New York, where everything was happening?
It was, again, it's a higher level. So New York is a very busy place to begin with. There is an energy there all the time anyway. When this happened, on the one hand, it was a shared experience that we all could commiserate with and, like at church, pray about together, knowing that we all knew what it felt like, right? You didn't have to explain your feelings a lot. But there was an extra then layer of anxiety because there were new layers of security that now we take for granted. It's just regular security, but it's all brand new then. So you're seeing security people with guns at places you didn't see them before. And all of the travel methods were different. So it was just new, more tension. And I will mention one other thing. There was a smell. The closest I can get to describing it is the smell of burning carpet. Have you ever smelled carpet burning, synthetic? So you think all those that building collapsing, right, and being on fire, all of those materials that build up all of those buildings. If you went to certain parts of the city, it looked like snow. There was dust everywhere. And you could smell this smell. And it wasn't exactly burning carpet, but that's the closest I can get to it.
To explaining it.
Yeah. There was a odor from, there were fires and there was everything that it fell on. So that was different too. It just was more tension and the smell.
And how do you feel now about 9/11?
on the one hand, it's a normal day, or I like to think of it as a normal day, because again, I like to think that it didn't take away the life that we like and we love and we have. But on the other hand, it wasn't a normal day at all. A lot of people's lives changed. Our whole world changed forever. Again, just security, right? It didn't used to be like it is now. So I guess I'm a little. I feel myself getting irritated with the people who want to make a big deal out of it and want to, rehash the whole thing all over again. Because I think we need to remember it, but then just move forward. But I understand that for a lot of people, remembering and keeping that alive is important. So, both of those.
All right, thank you so much for your time.
You're welcome. I'm glad I got to do this. I hope I was helpful.
Okay, have a great day.